This is President Jason Wright, and you're listening to Rambling About Washington.
Today, I'd like to welcome to the show ESPN and Fox reporter, Miss Renee Washington. Welcome to Rambling with Rio.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem. You know, I got my all black on because the Washington football team, I don't know. I feel like I'm already ready to write the eulogy on the season 5 weeks in. What did you think about the Washington-New Orleans game yesterday?
First of all, I am also wearing black. It's that kind of Monday early week mood. But I went into that game saying these are two teams that we have been seeing very inconsistent throughout the course of the season, and anything could have happened. I wasn't expecting a Hail Mary to end the half. I wasn't expecting a big deficit like that to lose from. So when I was saying anything could happen, I wasn't thinking literally anything, but that was pretty surprising. Not a great day for Washington football, unfortunately.
Oh, it was definitely not a great day. I don't even know why I let myself get so emotional and worked up over it, because it's really all I know as a fan here. But before we get into the team and more of like a league-wide approach, I'd like to know your fan story, what team you grew up rooting for, and what got you into sports media.
Yeah, my journey into sports media actually started as an athlete. So I was a 3-time
Soccer.
All-American college soccer player. Absolutely. Played some pro, and I come from a sports family. My dad played pro ball. All my siblings and aunts, uncles, parents, everybody played sports. So it was a no-brainer for me to be involved in sports from a young age. And when I stopped playing and I was actually coaching, I realized that this is more along the lines of what I wanted to do. I have a communications background, but I wasn't interested in doing any PR work and office work. I wanted to be out telling stories at games. And as you know, it's the adrenaline rush. Of course, today the adrenaline's low, but you had the roller coaster ride emotionally of being, as a reporter, that same feeling, the ups and downs of working with a team, working with games, working with shows. So it was a no-brainer for me to get into it. I love talking sports, any and everything sports. So made that transition about 5 years ago, and here I am.
Okay. And what childhood teams did you grow up rooting for?
Yes. I purposely was ignoring that question because I'm a Jersey girl, and I'm fortunate. Well, again, growing up in a sports family, I went to games. We were season ticket holders.
Jets or Giants? Jets or Giants?
No, Philly sports fan. Philly.
Philly. Oh, okay.
Yes. So I was a Sixers fan. I was growing up an Eagles fan. We went to Chargers games, Kicks games, every sport, Philadelphia. So working with Washington was definitely different, but at least I was still in the NFC East and still able to cover the division. But I did grow up, born and raised back in the AI days and Donovan McNabb days of Philly sports.
Hey, man. So you've actually seen a little bit of sports glory in your days. How did it feel to see y'all win a Super Bowl?
Oh, let me tell you, okay, that was one of the most exciting days of my life because I obviously, being against the Patriots, being a comeback win, having backup Nick Foles, and Foles we trust, and honestly, just being able to, I actually went into the city. I live like right outside of the city, so I went into the city as soon as they won and was just running the streets with all Philly fans as we were all going crazy. So hands down, one of my favorite days, and honestly, just favorite times. That whole next few 6 months to a year, I would even say, anywhere you went, it was like nothing is wrong because we won a Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, I couldn't imagine. Like if I was from Philly, I probably would have put Dreams and Nightmares intro on repeat for 6 months straight. Like, it would just been my theme music everywhere I go.
Well, that is the Philly theme song. You rarely go, if you ever go anywhere in Philly, especially like a game, a sport, any bars, any sort of nightlife, that song plays at least 5 times. So when they won the Super Bowl, oh yeah, that was blast. Everything Meek Mill was blasting to the streets. It was just a wild, exciting time, and excited to be a part of that. I got to enjoy it as a fan too, so that was fun.
So was your favorite sport growing up soccer, or that's just the one you were the best at?
That's what I was best at. So I actually come from a basketball family, and
Okay.
my sisters and I were the first in my family to play soccer. My parents let us play every single sport just to see what we enjoyed most. And we all played basketball, soccer, and ran track. I also actually ran track in college, but soccer was hands down my best sport. So it was a no-brainer for me as I was going through the recruiting process, although I was getting looks and offers for basketball too, to make the decision to play soccer. So it was always my favorite sport. I always tell people my favorite sport to play has always been soccer, but growing up in a basketball household and football household, those are the two sports that we can talk about current, past, the legend, hardwood classics, whatever it may
Absolutely.
be. I just grew up
Absolutely.
talking and watching those so much more.
Okay. And what position did you play in soccer?
I was a forward and a midfielder,
Okay.
so scoring
Okay.
goals, getting assists.
Okay, I was just about to say, was you a defender? I don't know how soccer defenders, I don't know how they operate, man. Like, you have to have endless energy. You're just running up and down the field, and you don't get the glory that the attackers get. So you were on the attack when you played soccer.
I was. And I actually, as a midfielder, was one that was running all over the field. That was in the attack and then back on defense too. So, I used to be a 90-minute player playing the whole game up and down all over the field. And I just loved it. Soccer, playing as an athlete. That's why I would say, even staying involved as a reporter now, I just loved the excitement of preparing for it. Now we go into it. We're at war with the other team, battling, competing, and just all that sports brings. It's great to be on the other side of it now and be able to have that perspective as a former player and coach myself. So definitely was a runner. I was a runner all over.
God bless your lungs and your stamina, because I definitely couldn't do that shit. That's way too much running for me. I like basketball. I could hoop a little bit, but I always had a football build, so that was my sport. My friends played soccer, and I just remembered them, like, when their practices would start, like, we'd be like 45 minutes into practice and their warm-up jog would still be going on. And I was like, soccer, that's never going to work for me. That's too much running. That's like cross country, but it's
not that bad. I don't put the cross country. Now, for a fact, you always saw the cross country team. I don't care what time of day it was. Their little flock running around campus.
Hell yeah.
We were not that bad, but we did have our fair share of beat tests, fitness tests, running miles and miles. But yeah, basketball, I love what basketball and football bring, because they were just obviously so different, with more of change of direction and more up and down, whereas soccer was it's a big field. So
okay, and before we get to football, let's talk a little basketball. I think we have a similar fanship when it comes to who our GOAT of the sport is, and I believe we're in accordance when it comes to LeBron Raymond James as being our GOAT. Is that how you feel as well?
Absolutely.
Hell
I was thinking, which way are you going with this? Because I didn't know if you were clowning me or not. I will proudly always admit LeBron is my GOAT. I have gone toe-to-toe with any and everybody. I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you were alive when Jordan played or not. LeBron is still my GOAT, because if I'm picking a team to build a player to build a team around, it's LeBron. The best team first player, can play every position. He is one of a kind. Magic is the closest we ever got to LeBron in terms of build and style of play. We all want to say Ben Simmons and Zion Williamson and all these other people could have been like LeBron. There is no one like LeBron.
Yeah.
He's my GOAT. I know. Ben,
there's nothing to him. Hell yeah. And I love MJ. Cool. Like, MJ was amazing.
I respect MJ.
A lot of the fanfare of MJ is he was more than the sport when he played. Like, we're in a different climate now. But Michael Jordan at the time, I'm sorry, LeBron at no point of his career played against plumbers and doctors, and I'm gonna hold that against Jordan.
Thank you.
In the 80s, he didn't win anything in the 80s, and there was no he should have been able to win something in the 80s. And there's so many different arguments to be had. My biggest point that I point out is that the year Jordan retired, Pippen took the Bulls 55-27, and they were one game from the Eastern Conference Finals. And you cannot show me one LeBron-led team that could do the same without him. Because every team, after he left, they went straight to the lottery, and that's all I need. I don't even need to go any deeper. I don't even need to go any deeper into the conversation, because the two greatest players before LeBron were Jordan and Magic. LeBron can score like Jordan and does everything Magic does. So how can you find a better basketball player than this guy? He's like a machine that was built to do everything, and he's the smartest player of all time. I'm gonna get a lot of hate from this guy. I know Washington
I'm gonna
fans
take it
hate
a step
LeBron.
further. I'm gonna take it a step further because everybody
Okay.
always brings up the year that LeBron lost to the Mavs and whatever.
God.
First of all, the history that and the legacy that LeBron has brought in making it to 10 NBA finals and then leading teams, as you talk about, that the very year after he left, look what happened in Cleveland. Look what happened in Miami. Now, Miami obviously has bounced back since then. But overall, the other thing is...
Took a minute.
Took a minute, but they did bounce back, but it definitely was not immediate. The other thing is when Michael Jordan played in the NBA, the Bulls were the best team when they were winning championships. They were the best team. We have debates, and this is what always kills me. We have debates about who was the best team ever. The 90s Bulls, the Warriors during their dynasty are in the conversation. And everybody always says it was the 90s Bulls. None of LeBron's teams are in the conversation for being the best team ever. He beat one of the best teams ever in the Warriors. Yeah, we always are so quick to give it to Michael because MJ had the stats and this, that. He's got more rings. But as you mentioned, and I always say, the game has evolved so much when you look at the players that MJ was playing against. And when I watched The Last Dance, it solidified my arguments. Because I looked at that, I was like, yeah, this is great. It gave me chills. I loved it. I loved the storyline, the way they went into it. But when I'm watching those clips again, because I've seen them all. I wasn't alive during that time, but I've watched plenty of Hardwood Classics of Jordan during that time. But watching them again with a refreshed perspective and watching how he's making these moves that you see now, Kyrie does, LeBron, Steph, Giannis, KD. We can list a lot of players, James Harden, that make the same moves. Derrick Rose make the same moves that MJ was making then. But the game itself has gotten so much better. It's not even close. They want to talk about the physicality. They were dirty back then.
Yeah, very dirty.
The Mouse in the Palace. They were dirty. It was a whole different brand of basketball. So yes, LeBron is my GOAT because this could be a whole hour in itself.
Oh, hell yeah. I could talk about this all day. And my favorite barbershop retort when it comes to LeBron is, he wouldn't have made it in the 80s. I was like, listen, sir. You put Larry Bird in front of LeBron, and LeBron might average 50, 30, and 10. Like, what was a Larry Bird gonna do with LeBron James? Like Jordan, a lot of his greatness came from the fact that he was the only alien in the league at the time. I will take a Rudy Gay or an Iguodala and place them in the 80s, they would have been a superstar. That's a controversial take. I believe it 100%. Like, what would a point guard what is Isaiah Thomas doing with Russell Westbrook? What would he do with Russell Westbrook? What would John Stockton in the little shorts do with Russell Westbrook?
I love it. I love it. But that's and here's the other thing. We do some, like, as basketball, everyone wants to be an expert. We dismiss Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain. We're quick to say, what they did doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that Bill's got more championships than MJ. If championships is your argument for why someone is a GOAT, that does not make sense to me because there are a lot of players out here with rings, and they're nowhere near the conversation.
Facts.
So that champ is not just a championship to me. And like you said, looking at the team that MJ had around him compared to the group that LeBron had healthy around him, no. So yeah, it's just everyone wants to rewrite history. That's my biggest thing is we all want to rewrite history. They're a GOAT in their own mind. First of all, Jordan and LeBron are different types of players. If we were comparing Kobe, may he rest in peace, to Jordan, different conversation. We don't compare Shaq to Jordan. Nope. We don't compare Kareem to Jordan. LeBron and Jordan played so differently. But he's still my GOAT that if I'm building a team, I'm starting with King James, who is still the best player in the league. Another controversial take.
I like it. Giannis ain't got no bag yet, so we can't give that to him yet.
He won one championship. LeBron, when he won one, people were still calling him a flop.
Yeah, and we already know both teams in the finals got there because there were very serious injuries to the better teams in the conference. But before we leave the topic, I'll just say, like, Jordan, I love the dude. Like, I love, like, but we're talking about the guy off the floor. It's not even close, but we're not even going to go there today. LeBron is 100,000 times better human than Michael Jordan. But, let's go to the NFL. Based on these first 5 weeks of the season, like, based on what your preseason predictions were, where are they at now? Who's your Super Bowl picks based on what you've seen through the first 5 weeks?
I think I originally had the Chiefs go back in the Super Bowl, and you know what? It was Chiefs, Packers.
Yeah, I had the same too.
Yeah, and now, well, look. Here's what I will really say. It's a long season.
Very
once
long.
you get to the playoffs, it doesn't matter what your standings and record was in the regular season. You make it to the playoffs, you're going to see a whole different team. So I'm not counting the Chiefs out, because the Chiefs still have a couple losses that they could potentially get in these next couple weeks. But
they ain't getting one this week.
Yeah, no.
They ain't got no L coming in Washington this week.
No, I said next couple weeks. Skipping hope. No, just wouldn't that be something though if they lose to Washington? Washington fans wouldn't know what to do. Okay?
If we beat the Chiefs, I'm gonna play the damn lottery. You know what I'm saying? Like that would not make any sense. I would imagine Mahomes didn't catch the flight if that was the case.
Maybe the team's just saving it up for this week.
We'll
but
see.
I don't, like looking at teams like the Chargers, the Ravens, the Cardinals. I actually did have the Cardinals making a deep playoff run. I always counted the Bills into that conversation too. Nobody has fully sold me yet. That I think right now we look at 5 games and it's great what you're doing now, but injuries happen, COVID could happen. There's just so much that can change that I'm still going to stick with Chiefs, Packers, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a little overreaction happening based on the Chiefs' first few games, but it's like when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, all of this doesn't matter. All you really need is a ticket to the party, and he will take you there. He will take you to the promised land. I love what Buffalo's doing. I love what the Chargers are doing. Justin Herbert and Josh Allen are absolute superstars, and I dream of a day where Washington can have a signal caller like that because, look, I'm going to be 30 on Thursday. It's never happened here. I've never seen a quarterback get drafted and then get to his second contract here, and we just churn them out. We've started 11 quarterbacks in the last 3 seasons, and currently, the guy, I mean, he's cool. Taylor Heineke, he's a great story, but he might have just ran out of that luster. We played the New Orleans Saints yesterday, a very winnable game versus a very beatable team. What went wrong for Washington yesterday?
Well, you said a lot of things there that I want to unpack. And first is I agree with you. I think when you look at a player like Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to put him in the category of some of the greatest athletes that we've seen. I compare it to how a lot of people are quick to count out anytime somebody like LeBron, I know we're just talking about him in the NBA, certain players get to the playoffs. It doesn't matter if they're the 1st seed. It doesn't matter if they're the 8th seed. They're going to be a team, or a wild card for the NFL. They're going to be a team that you have to watch out for. So this early success from some of these teams, like you talk about Justin Herbert and the Chargers, look at how fast the Raiders changed and switched up. The Saints, the Panthers. There are a lot of teams that week 3 we were raving about that by week 5 we're not really talking about as much.
Life comes at you fast. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a long season, and I actually think for the Chiefs losing so much this early on will actually help them, because in the past they've had so much success. Look at how much they lost the last 2 seasons. You need that sometimes. That's that gut check, reality check, so you can go back to the drawing board, work on some things, and now come into the playoffs refreshed without that pressure of we haven't really lost this season. You've been in all different types of elements. So I think come playoff time this year actually makes them even more scary to watch because they'll have had these lumps that they've taken so early on. But to your point about Washington, I actually think of Taylor Heineke a lot of like Nick Foles and what he brought for the Eagles, where whenever Nick Foles was on the field, everybody's tempo raised. They're playing for Nick. It was Saint Nick, and everything that Nick Foles was doing was great. But Nick Foles is not a starting quarterback. Nick Foles is a great backup quarterback, and I think Taylor Heineke in this offensive line, especially because they don't have the identity of an O-line that he can just sit back and have receivers and running backs around him to make his job easier. And I hate to say that. That's why he's being exposed. Looking across the league, I think that's what helped, like the Rams, for example, with Matthew Stafford coming right in and just seamlessly kind of picking up. The Rams, you look at the way Cooper Kupp is playing and the guys around him, he doesn't have to do much. But for Washington, Taylor's got to do a lot. So I think that what we're seeing is the inexperience of this team play out. Everybody got really high up and put them on this pedestal because of last season. That, you know, the way their defense played, the way that they played in the wild card game against Tampa Bay. No, it's a whole new season. So you can't attribute all they did last year. We got to look at this year. And this group is getting exposed because they still don't have that identity on either side of the ball, that you know what you're going to get consistently from them. And that's where I think the consistency and the struggle to just make the simple plays at times has kind of been put under a microscope even more in these first 5 games.
Yep. And ultimately, when your team has so many holes and you don't have that franchise guy behind center, because a great quarterback does a great job of masking deficiencies. You know, a great quarterback will make your problems look like they don't exist. It's kind of like the LeBron thing in the NBA. And also, when you have a great quarterback, sometimes your team has a switch and they don't have to turn it on in week 4 of the season. The Chiefs know that all they have to do is stay afloat and get in. And once they get there, Mahomes can make magic happen. And I'm looking at the NFC right now. I'm looking at the Rams. I'm looking at the Cardinals. I'm looking at the Buccaneers. The NFC playoffs is going to be lit this year. Brady is 100 years old and still playing like he's in his prime at 28. Kyler Murray, it doesn't even make sense when I see it because he looks like he's the size of my 10-year-old son, but he has an arm like Josh Allen. He runs around like 04 Madden Vic. It is so exciting. The NFC, and then Rodgers is Rodgers. How do you see the NFC shaking out?
I love it. I love it because you're absolutely right. You know, it's not as easy. I think what we're getting is a mix of some of the old, some of the new. A team like the Cardinals is a team that we've been keeping an eye on, and especially with Kyler Murray, but a team that people were quick to write off. He's too small. He's too this. He's too that. No, it doesn't matter. Kyler Murray plays like he's 6'10" out there.
Hell
okay,
yeah.
He looks like the biggest guy on the field because of his speed and the way he just brings so much to that offense. You see some of the plays he's making where he's able to just solve problems on the fly. That's what you need from your franchise leading quarterback. So, you know, when I look at the NFC specifically, I mean, because the AFC also honestly has a lot of teams that I could really count in right now that I'm excited about. But looking at the NFC, excuse me, I love the fact that we don't know who's going to be in the NFC Championship.
I like it.
You know, I love that because it now gives us every week, like this, looking at games this past week, I'm like, ooh, I was watching Browns, Chargers, even the Detroit game. I'm sorry, I'm a little upset they didn't win that, but even Detroit, they're a team that's 0-5. When you look across the league, there's a lot of teams right now that are bringing an exciting brand of football. So when I look specifically at the NFC, and of course, being an Eagles fan growing up, having worked with Washington, I'm at least happy that right now the NFC East doesn't look like it was a dumpster fire. It was last year with the progress. But the Cardinals, the Rams, even the NFC West specifically is scary. The Seahawks,
well, every team in that
terrible
division,
injury to Russell Wilson. He'll be out for a few weeks. The 49ers, Trey Lance, I know gets the starting nod, and I kind of like him there. You know, I know he's going to
like
take
him there too,
but I like him there. He brings a little more than Jimmy G does. So I just love the fact that there's a lot of teams right now that could be sitting in that NFC East championship.
When you take a young guy that early in the draft, like if he's truly special, he'll be able to get through these rough patches, take his lumps, and shine because the cream always rises to the top. That's why when you see these young quarterbacks, you know almost immediately who's going to pan out. Like, you got to give them some time, but you see traits and you see flashes of it. And I just want to know what that feels like to have one of those guys here. I wanted us to go get Fields. I would have took Mac Jones because I really like Mac Jones, and I think he's a good quarterback. He doesn't offer as much electricity as some of these other quarterbacks. But what is Washington's plan at quarterback after the season, in your opinion? What would you do if you were running the show in Washington?
A lot. I don't even know where to begin. I think the biggest things for Washington is you've got to figure out and solidify your offensive line. You know, when you look at that number of 11 different quarterbacks that have played in that starting role over the last couple of seasons. That's not a good stat to have.
Hell no.
So I think the first thing is if you are going to stick with Taylor Heineke, and we don't know what's going to happen, of course, with Ryan Fitzpatrick, we have no idea. But if you're gonna stick with an average quarterback, you've got to build at least receivers and running back, and you've got to build the O-line in general. Or you need to make the financial move and the risk to go after a big-time quarterback. I'm talking a top quarterback in the league. As we talk about, you look at Buffalo, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert with the Chargers.
Top notch.
Yes, even and the young quarterbacks we're talking about, Justin Fields with the Bears, Trey Lance with 49ers. You have to have a quarterback that at least is either young that you're building up or is established and older, and now you know coming in exactly what he's going to get. But you can't have a tweener. So I think for me, it starts with you got to have somebody that consistently can lead this O-line, make decisions in and out of the pocket, under pressure, be able to make the simple plays and even make the exceptional plays. So I think the first thing I'm going for is a quarterback without a doubt. And if you want to build up Taylor Heineke as a strong backup, you can definitely do that too.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're going to try to make him the starting guy, you need to put the work in around him then. It's got to be either or, but you can't have neither. Something's got to change. So I like the receiving play that we've been seeing. You look at players like Scary Terry and Antonio Gibson's been doing a good job running the ball. J.D. McKissick does a good job. All right, who are these guys can we keep? And who are these guys we maybe need to use to bring in somebody else and start to raise our depth of our receivers and even just the talent level as a whole? So I'm definitely strengthening the offensive line. And even the defense is going to need some work too, because as we're seeing, they're not as great as everybody thought they were going to be on paper. And this is still a young D line that still is working through a lot. Their pass rush hasn't been there. You know, they haven't been making the simple stops, not forcing enough turnovers. Third down conversions have been scary. You've got to solidify some things on both sides of the ball. And I think it starts with figuring out an identity, which means bring in veteran, experienced, talented players that can now lead on the field when you are, need them to step up and make a big play happen. So a lot.
It's a whole lot. It's a laundry list. It's a laundry list of things, and it's crazy. Like, we went from the narrative being right before the season started, these guys are a quarterback away because their defense is great and they have weapons to, let's blow this whole shit up after 5 weeks, and you hate to see it, but sometimes you just gotta swallow that pill, accept it, and you gotta actually accept that we're in year 2 of a rebuild. So I'll be paying close attention to Malik Willis at Liberty, Matt Corral at Ole Miss, and some of these college guys, because we got to find our own guy. We don't have a shot at a Wilson or Rodgers or anything like that. And Deshaun Watson, I don't even want to have that conversation because there's way too much going on in there. And okay, so you cover you're with Fox and ESPN. Are you covering more professional or college? What are you going to be doing over there?
Yeah, so I've actually been working with them for years now. With ESPN, I cover college games, so everything from sideline reporting. I actually was in the booth calling a football game for Princeton Columbia Ivy League matchup a couple weekends ago. Color commentary, play-by-play. So I do a little bit of everything with them on the college scene, all sports. And then with Fox Sports is Mystics and Wizards. So I was fortunate to start off with the Mystics back when they won a championship. So I've been around a lot of championships. Back when they won. Sorry.
Bless your heart.
At least, yes, it was a great experience. I can tell you that. So I loved it for the both of us. But also with the Wizards, just trying to see what they're going to be able to do this season. Of course, as we talk about making changes in the offseason, the Wizards have definitely been doing that the last 2 seasons. So it'll be interesting to see how they're looking this year. And then, I have been working in the MLS with the Philadelphia Union. So I'm everywhere. All things professional sports.
Okay. And you have your own podcast too, correct?
I do. And I host that through Fox Sports as well, Beyond the Headlines, where we get into a lot of different topics around sports, music, entertainment, behind the scenes type stories, just getting into some deeper conversation besides just the trending topics, which is where the name actually comes from. So that's live each week across social media. And it's just a different type of conversation to get into, similar to kind of what we're doing here, but just to be able to have different types of guests on, share different stories with listeners and viewers, and bring them a little bit more than just the traditional storylines we always get into.
Exactly, because you got to bring your own niche, because if not, it's flooded waters in this content creation game. So you have to bring something that sets you apart. That's why I just like to keep things conversational. We could jump from topic to topic. So you say you talk about music on your show as well, right?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of great artists out there that have really been capitalizing on the pandemic. Music has been booming over this last year. Like, when you look at the amount of artists that we know of, Drake, Meek, Chloe Bailey, different people that have been coming out with music, but even some rising artists. So, I've been fortunate to have a good amount of artists on, actually, that are really just taking off. And that's the fun part of it too, is when you have people on your show and you fast forward 3 months, 6 months, a year, and you see them blowing up. It's like,
okay,
when they were on my show.
Hey, that's what's up. Hell yeah. So what'd you think of the CLB album?
It was nice. It was dope. I mean, I expected nothing less than greatness. You know,
for sure. It's still in my daily rotation. Like Drake knows how to make music. He knows how to make albums. He knows how to make hits, and he can open and close an album as good as anyone ever. And like you're just literally hating if you don't like Drake's music, or you say he's bad at music.
I don't think I've ever heard Drake put anything out that I did not like. He has music for every vibe, every mood, every day, if you want to rap, if you want to dance, if you want to be in your bag, if you want to be out here acting a little ratchet, if you want to be caught up with your feelings. Like, he's got music for it all, and he always delivers. He always knows the assignment, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I appreciate the track Fountains he had, because it put me on the Thames, and Thames EP is one of the best compilations of music I've heard in a long time. It's called If Orange Was a Place. If you haven't heard it, Nigerian singer Thames, she is amazing. There's a song on there with Brent Fayez, who's one of my favorite artists. But we could talk about, we could do this all day, but I'm gonna let you go. Plug anything you got coming, your social medias, and we can head out for the evening.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate you for having me on. I just realized my green screen's been on this whole time, so sorry for like the glitchy looking screen. But no, I've got some new things that I'm cooking up too that I'm excited to be launching. So the biggest thing is we're moving forward, always bringing out some new content in unique ways. So you can follow me on social media at Renee P. Wash on Twitter, at Renee P. Washington on Instagram, Facebook, everywhere else. And stay tuned as I'm continuing to bring content through my shows and through my work, but also some new projects that I'm excited to launch. So we'll see.
All right. So until next time, hail to the nameless football team. Deuces.